I raised my wife's children as my own, but when they disrespected me, I stopped providing and left. Am I the asshole? I've always believed in a few fundamental principles: working hard for what you have, accepting responsibility for your actions, and remaining loyal to those you care about. I also learned the hard way that loving the wrong people can lead to serious problems. This entire story is about how my views were put to the test, and how everything I thought I understood about family came crumbling down. To be honest, this isn't a happy story. It's about being taken advantage of, being exploited, and finally recognizing when enough is enough. I am not going to sugarcoat anything. I'm going to tell you exactly how it happened because I believe it's vital to be honest about these things. We often hear of happy endings, but sometimes the ending is simply an ending. And sometimes that's fine. It is actually necessary. I'm not trying to be a saint here. I made mistakes. I was perhaps very trusting and inclined to believe in the best in others. I ignored certain red signs and paid the consequences. However, I also learned a lot. So, how did it all begin? It began with a woman named Amelia. She was widowed. Her husband, a military officer, had died. She had 2 young children, a boy named Daniel, who was about 4 years old and full of energy, and a baby girl named Mia, who was just learning to walk. I met them through a mutual friend, and I could tell immediately away that Amelia was struggling. She wasn't just sad, though she certainly was. It was more than that. She was totally fatigued, visibly weary. You could see it in the way she held herself, the dark circles under her eyes, and the way she appeared to be running on fumes. It wasn't just "I'm tired" tiredness, it was a deep, bone-weary exhaustion caused by carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. I didn't intervene because I felt obligated or anything. It was not some sort of knight in shining armor complex. It was only that I actually saw her. I observed her struggle and wanted to help. I wanted to make things a little simpler for her and the children. I had a genuine desire to provide some stability and support in their lives. I began by helping out in small ways, such as offering to keep the kids so she could take a nap or running errands. However, it quickly became more. I found myself yearning to be a father figure for those children. Their father had passed away, and I felt confident that I could fill in for him, not to replace him, of course, but to provide them with the love and support that every child needs. I suppose you could say I was contrasting my own values, hard labor, responsibility, and loyalty, with the circumstances they were in. I wanted to give them what their father couldn't, not because I had to, but because I really wanted to. It felt right. It felt like the beginning of something positive, something real. And for a long time, it was okay. I poured myself into it. I worked long hours not only to pay the bills, but also to ensure that those children had everything they required. A decent school, great clothes, a pleasant home, lots of food on the table, all of it. I prioritized their needs before my own. I wasn't simply attempting to meet their basic needs. I also wanted to alleviate any sense of loss they may have had because their father was not present. I wanted to fill the vacuum and make them feel safe and cherished. It wasn't all about the material goods, however. I was also there for them emotionally. I attended every single school event, soccer game, and play. I cheered the loudest. I was their biggest fan. I planned birthday parties, family vacations, and did all of the dad things. They answered. They loved me back. They addressed me as Dad, rather than Thomas. And you know what? I believed it. I actually did. I felt like I was the luckiest man alive. I believed I had established a genuine loving family. I was so caught up in the idea, in the desire for it to be true, that I failed to notice the cracks that were beginning to appear. I was so intent on creating the perfect photo that I ignored the warning indications. Looking back, I realized that I was building on a foundation that was not as firm as I had assumed. But at the moment I was fully committed. I invested my heart and soul. I was determined to make this work and be the greatest father figure I could be. I put everything I had into it, and for a while, it appeared to be paying off. We had rituals, conventions, and inside jokes. We were a family. I felt confident that emotion was what kept me going. The initial signals of problems were minor, almost insignificant. A few comments from the youngsters, some backtalk, and a roll of the eyes here and there. Nothing significant. Nothing unusual for children growing up. I brushed it off. I told myself that was just standard teenage behavior, a phase they were passing through. I didn't want to perceive it as more than that. I recall Daniel, he must have been around 13 or 14, making a nasty remark about how I wasn't cool because I wouldn't let him stay out late. Mia, who was a few years younger, responded with a similarly nasty remark. It stung a little, but I laughed it off. I told myself they were only testing boundaries and pushing limits, so as all teens do. As the children grew older, the disdain became more obvious. By the age of 17, Daniel had become a full-fledged teenager. He began ignoring curfews, dismissing any advice I offered, and generally acting as if he was entitled to do whatever he wanted. It was typical teenage rebellion, but it felt different. Sharper, somehow. There was a meanness that I couldn't ignore. Mia, who was around 14 at the time, began copying her brother's conduct. She would roll her eyes at me, ignore my orders, and dismiss any worries I expressed. They established a united front against me, demonstrating that they did not respect my authority. Or me, for that matter. It felt like they were ganging up on me, seeing how far they could push me. Amelia's reply, or lack thereof, exacerbated the situation. She declined to intervene. She would not back me up. She'd just sit there, generally looking at her phone, pretending not to notice what was going on. Sometimes she would even gently undermine me. Maybe she'd appear to be distracted by her phone or sigh, as if I was being unreasonable. It wasn't simply passive, she seemed to actively encourage their actions. She'd make excuses for them. Oh, they're just tired. They're going through a phase, or we need to keep the peace. There was always something. However, it was actually a pattern of supporting their disdain. She was allowing them to get away with it, undermining my authority and making me feel more lonely. I started to feel like I was the only one who cared about setting boundaries and teaching them what was right and wrong. I began to mistrust Amelia's motives. Was she truly this oblivious, or was she purposely undermining me? I received my first true wake-up call about this time, but I still didn't completely understand what was going on. The true breaking point, when everything began to fall apart, occurred one night. Daniel arrived home much beyond his curfew. I'm talking hours later, and he hadn't called, texted, or anything. I was scared sick, of course, but when he eventually walked in, he acted as if it was nothing. I asked him calmly where he had been, just a simple question to ensure accountability. He did not even look at me. He simply stated, "Relax, I'm not a kid." That was it. There was no apology or explanation, just a flippant brush-off. And then he shouted, "You're not my real dad. Stop acting like you own me." All those years of love, care, and support were flung back in my face. It felt like a punch in the belly. Mia, who was standing there, chipped in. "Yeah, you're just some guy mom married." As if all the years we'd spent together and the experiences we'd shared were meaningless. Something inside me has just broken. It wasn't anger, not yet, but rather a deep sense of disillusionment. And the worst part? Amelia did not say anything. She just stood there silently. Her silence represented the ultimate betrayal. It proved all I had suspected, that I was nothing more than a convenience to them, a provider, someone to handle the things their true father couldn't. It was the defining moment for me, when I learned that the family I believed I had created was a fiction. It was not long after the first episode that it occurred again. This time, it was Mia. She had made a mess in the kitchen, so I asked her to clean it up. Simple enough, right? Basic responsibilities. But instead, she simply looked at me and said, "Why don't you do it? It's your house, isn't it?" That stung. It wasn't just the contempt, it was how she said it, as if I were a servant whose sole function was to clean up after them. It accentuated my outsider status, reducing me to little more than a provider and cleaner. It was an intentional attempt to make me feel insignificant. And then, as if on cue, Daniel added the identical line. "You're not even our real dad." It was as if they were tag-teaming me, reaffirming their rejection and ensuring I understood my place, or lack thereof, in their lives. But this time, Amelia's reply sealed the deal. She didn't yell or become irritated. She just looked at me nonchalantly, not glancing up from her phone, and remarked, "They have a point, Thomas. Maybe you should back off." That was all. That was the moment I realized it was finished. It was no longer just the children's disdain. Amelia had explicitly agreed with them. She was siding with them against me, the guy who had spent years caring for them. It wasn't a moment of rage or even pain, not really. It was a moment of clarity. I eventually realized I was finished. There was no going back. This was not a family. It was a fake, and I was finally ready to leave. It was a gentle epiphany, a peaceful acceptance of the fact. I was no longer striving to hang on to something that was not genuine. I was ready to let go, so I did something I never imagined I would do. I paused. I stopped giving, caring, and trying. It wasn't an impulsive decision. It was a calculated, thoughtful one. I've just withdrawn. I stopped providing for them, no more rides, allowances, protection, guidance, or worry. I let them face the repercussions of their behavior. It was a total 180 from the way I had been for years. I was always there for them, no matter what. Now I was gone. I'm not going to lie, it stung. It contradicted every instinct I had. I had committed so much of myself in this family, and it was really terrible to simply walk away. But I knew it was important. I needed to defend myself. I knew it would not be easy. I knew they would react and try to push back. But I was prepared for it. I'd hit my limit. I gave them everything I had, and they threw it back at me. I was finished being the doormat. At first, they laughed. They insulted me, made caustic remarks, and smirked whenever I passed by. They believed they had won. They assumed they didn't need me. They were relying on Amelia to deliver all I was providing. They were wrong. They'd make these tiny jabs, copying my directions and mocking the way I tried to set boundaries. They'd exclaim, "Oh, are we breaking the rules?" while rolling their eyes and smirking at each other. It was as if they were attempting to provoke me, to elicit a reaction from me. Oh, Amelia made sure to pick up my slack. She paid for their small shopping trips and ensured that their weekends were still full with fast food and excessive spending. She kept them comfortable, smug, and convinced them they didn't need me. But I knew it would not last. I knew Amelia had few resources. She did not have the same salary as I did. She couldn't keep up that kind of spending indefinitely. So I stayed quiet. I let them have fun. I let them think they could get away with it. I knew the reality check was coming. I didn't participate. I did not argue. I did not react. I simply observed calmly, waiting for the inevitable. It was a strange kind of patience, formed by the conviction that I was correct. I knew their confidence was based on a flimsy foundation that would soon disintegrate. I simply had to wait it out. It was a waiting game. Then, gradually but certainly, things began to alter. Shopping outings became less regular. Fast food trips became fewer and farther between. New garments have ceased emerging. Small changes at first, but visible. Then more problems began to surface. School expenses became an issue. Daniel got into some difficulty at school, and Amelia wasn't sure how to handle it. Mia smashed her phone and had no money to repair it. I remember the first time Daniel missed his school transportation. He'd always taken it for granted, rarely trying to express gratitude. Now he was alone. He had to run for the bus, and from what I've heard, he barely made it, huffing and puffing, absolutely out of breath. It's a minor detail, but it was symbolic. It was the first noticeable break in their comfy world. And I'll confess it. I felt a sense of satisfaction, not joy, precisely, but a quiet vindication. I knew what it was like to strive and work for everything you had. I recall when I was younger and had to work hard to make ends meet. They, on the other hand, have always received everything. Naturally, I said nothing. I just watched. I could see Mia's frustration when she learned her broken phone would not be magically replaced. I overheard her complain to Amelia, as well as Amelia's increasingly feeble justifications. She was running out of money and realized she couldn't offer everything I had. That following day, Mia had a major breakdown, complaining about how unfair it was that she couldn't have her phone repaired. Amelia finally stated, just above a whisper, that she didn't have the money right now. It was a minor admission, but a crucial one. It was the first time she had openly acknowledged her limited resources. It was the beginning of the end for their denial. The truth of their situation began to seep in. They were beginning to realize that their privileged existence was dependent on me, the person they had so easily discarded and despised. The free ride was ended, and they were beginning to feel the bumps in the road. It was a brutal but necessary awakening. My absence was making itself felt. Not long after the phone incident, Amelia confronted me. Of course, she was upset. She accused me of being childish and disregarding my obligations. That word, responsibilities, stayed with me. It indicated how she saw me, not as a partner, not as a father figure, but as someone with commitments to meet, a provider, a walking ATM. She kept blaming me for everything that was going wrong. She felt I was abandoning them, being selfish, and not acting like a man. She tried to make me feel guilty, as if I were the terrible guy. It was all a projection, of course. She was projecting her own failings onto me. I let her rant. I let her say everything, and when she paused for breath, I asked her a simple question. I questioned her why she had never defended me, and why she had always supported the children, even when they were disrespectful. I questioned her why she had let them treat me the way they did. And that is when it happened. That's when the truth eventually emerged. She sneered, and I mean sneered, and said, "Because I agree with them, Thomas. You were never really their father." It felt like a slap in the face, but it also confirmed everything I had assumed. But it did not end there. She went further. She actually stated that she had warned the kids not to let me manage them. I told them not to let you control them, she claimed. I raised them alone before you, and I can do it again. That was the real kicker. It was not simply passive passivity, it was deliberate long-term undermining. She had intentionally promoted their disdain and poisoned their minds against me. Daniel and Mia were standing in the corridor, arms crossed, with smug expressions on their faces. It seemed like they were enjoying the show. At that point, I thought, this is it. This is who they really are. Not the sweet, innocent children I had tried to love and care for, but spoiled, entitled brats, enabled by their manipulative mother. Despite the hurt and betrayal, I felt relieved. It was over. The charade was over. I had an answer. There was no ambiguity and no space for doubt. I knew without a doubt that I had made the right decision by walking away. The reality was unpleasant, but also liberating. I was finally free. But things worsened before they improved. Amelia's rage, combined with their own sense of entitlement, drove the kids to act out even more. It began with tiny things. My personal possessions would disappear. Then some crucial work files vanished from my computer. I began to suspect they were teasing me, but I had no proof. The situation then escalated. One morning, I discovered my car had been keyed, a long, deep mark along the side. That's when I realized I needed to do something. I discreetly installed security cameras inside and outside the home. I didn't tell anyone, including Amelia. I only wanted to gather proof, and I succeeded. A few days later, I caught Daniel and Mia on video in my closet. They were laughing, ripping up my garments and destroying them with scissors. It was purposeful vandalism. I did not challenge them. I did not yell or scream. I just stayed quiet. I documented everything. I've saved the video clip. I took pictures of the damage. I gathered all of the menacing texts they'd sent me, evidence of their growing anger. I was playing along, letting them believe they were winning while secretly planning my departure. I realized I had to defend myself, not just emotionally, but legally. I knew things were going to get bad, so I wanted to be prepared. I was preparing my case, accumulating the ammunition I'd need to fight back if necessary. It was a sad and pathetic scenario, but I was resolved to handle it with as much respect and calm as I could. I was not going to come down to their level. I was going to be smart, strategic, and quiet. The next step was to see a lawyer. I described the problem and showed him all of the proof I had obtained. He listened quietly, nodding occasionally, and when I finished, he told me I had a solid case. We discussed divorce, and he even offered a restraining order due to the children's growing animosity. I also filed a police report regarding the property damage. It felt strange to report my stepchildren to the police, but I knew it was necessary. I needed to keep an official record of their actions to protect myself from any accusations or legal challenges. It was another step in the process of breaking relationships and freeing myself from this toxic environment. Then, one afternoon, while Amelia and the children were gone, I packed a bag. I didn't take much, just the necessities, the things that were most important to me. I left everything else behind, including the furniture, appliances, and material possessions I had accumulated over the years. They weren't important. What was crucial was my freedom and peace of mind. I left an envelope on the kitchen countertop. The divorce papers were inside, along with copies of all supporting documentation, such as the police report, images of the damage, and screenshots of the threatening texts. It was a formal act of separation. There was no going back. I went out of the house and did not look back. I got into my car, the one with the long scrape on the side, and drove away. I didn't have a plan, really. I just knew I needed to get out of the toxic environment I was living in. The last phase was financial. I stopped all joint accounts and denied Amelia access to my assets. It was a harsh move, I admit, but it was necessary. I had to limit her capacity to continue enabling the children's entitled behavior. I needed to make it apparent that the gravy train had halted. It was the final cut of ties, the ultimate act of departure. It was over. Amelia reacted as one could have imagined. She contacted me several times, leaving furious voicemails accusing me of being a coward, abandoning them, and being a bad person. She claimed she could live without me, that she didn't want my money, and that she would be better off without me. It was just bluster, of course. She was in denial and refused to acknowledge the reality of the situation. I did not return her calls. I did not react to her texts. I've just blocked her number. I declined to engage in additional dispute. I had spoken my piece. I'd taken my stand, and I was finished. I needed to focus on my own well-being and create a new life for myself. Then the children began messaging me. At first, they sent the same careless, arrogant messages they had always sent, but the tone gradually shifted. They began to sound apprehensive and even sorry. They apologized for their actions, admitting that things were challenging, and that they were struggling without my help. Finally, I got a message from Mia, the younger one. It was only 3 words. I miss you. It was a big change, but it was too late. The damage was done. The trust was broken. I couldn't return, even if I wanted to. I stayed mute. I did not respond. I recognized their regret, but I remained solid in my decision. I'd learned a harsh lesson and was determined not to make the same mistakes again. I gave them everything I had, and they threw it back at me. I was finished. My silence was my response. It was my way of saying, you made your choice, and now you have to live with the consequences. So, that is my story. It's not pretty, but it's genuine, and it taught me some essential things. The most important rule is to never allow others to take you for granted. Never beg for respect. Never waste your energy on individuals who do not appreciate you. And if you feel used or insulted, move away. Do not hesitate. Do not look back. It's a difficult lesson to learn and even more difficult to apply, but it's necessary for your own well-being and self-respect. You deserve to be treated with kindness, respect, and love. And if you don't get it, you have the right, or obligation to walk away. Some individuals only recognize your worth after you're gone, and by then, it's too late. It's a terrible truth, but it is nonetheless a truth. Do not wait for them to recognize your worth. Know your worth and act appropriately. It is not about selfishness, it is about self-awareness. It is about protecting your heart, mind, and soul. Thank you for reading. I hope my story can help someone out there who is going through something similar. Remember that you are not alone, and you deserve to be happy. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. Choose yourself. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. My mother-in-law wrote my husband's ex's name on my birthday cake, so I pranked her back on hers. She went quiet, and I blocked her. Allow me to tell you about my mother-in-law, the queen of criticism. She made it apparent right away that she didn't like me or our marriage. Every time she entered our house, it was as if she had a radar for spotting flaws in everything. She had a secret plan to nitpick her way through our lives. Take this one instance. She stated that she preferred a specific type of tea and could not stand anything else. I thought I'd be the perfect host and get her that same tea, but it wasn't enough for her. As soon as she caught a scent, she acted as if I had served her some sort of deadly sludge and tossed it out, insisting she would never say she enjoyed something like that. But that was only the top of the iceberg. This woman had a knack for being snooty in the most innovative ways. She made sarcastic remarks about my cuisine, clothing choices, and even how I furnished our home. It felt like she had a personal vengeance against me. You'd think my husband would put his foot down and advocate for me, right? Well, he tried and failed. He'd always try to smooth things over, saying that she needed to respect our decisions and embrace me as a member of the family, but she wouldn't budge. It was as if she wanted to be the family's gatekeeper and determined I wasn't up to the task. Seriously, who does that? We were meant to be a family, yet she treated me like an intruder. So I couldn't believe it when I learned that my mother-in-law, of all people, had planned a surprise birthday party for me. It was a strange twist given that she had never been a fan of mine. I had conflicting feelings, wondering if she was pulling a prank or actually wanting to make amends. Little did I know that my birthday surprise was going to be anything but joyful. The day began with the usual birthday celebrations, balloons, decorations, and smiles. I tried my hardest to put my worries aside and enjoy the moment, but then the truth hit: the birthday cake. As they brought out the cake, I was delighted to see what it looked like, but imagine my surprise when I saw my husband's ex's name spelled out in huge, strong characters rather than mine. Seriously, how could this happen? I glanced to my mother-in-law, trying to figure out what was going on. She had a smirk on her face that suggested she was hiding something. Then she casually said that she had misspelled my name because she was becoming older and forgetful. Yes, right. It was evident that she did it on purpose. Who misspells their daughter-in-law's name and writes the ex's name on her birthday cake? It felt like a cruel joke, and I couldn't believe she had sunk so low. Everyone else seemed to be in astonishment, unsure how to react. I tried to remain calm, but deep inside, I was hurt and enraged. It was difficult not to take it personally, given all of her caustic words and disdain. When my husband saw the birthday cake, he was as surprised as I was. He sincerely wanted to surprise me with a unique birthday celebration, But his mother stepped in and offered to prepare the entire thing herself. It felt like a promising sign that she was now willing to try to improve our relationship. She expressed to my husband that she wanted him to have a good relationship with me and was willing to make an effort. It was as if she was playing the part of a compassionate and understanding mother-in-law, leading him to believe she had turned a new leaf. He had no idea that it was all a ruse, a devious scheme to ruin my birthday and harm me in the process. I did not want to ruin the party, so I simply smiled. I had other things planned. Now, let me tell you some backstory. My mother-in-law seemed to have a penchant for causing difficulties by comparing me to my husband's ex. It was ironic, because my husband had informed me that she had never approved of his ex. Talk about déjà vu. What made it even more humorous was that my mother-in-law had been my father-in-law's second wife. It was as if she had casually forgotten her own history while messing with ours. The irony was too real. The narrative of my father-in-law was a mystery in and of itself. My spouse knew little about his other family, and I hadn't provided much information either. We just knew that my father-in-law had two families, and his other family seemed uninterested in this one. We heard rumors about a distant and troubled relationship with them, but the specifics were kept under wraps. It was as if there was a hidden barrier that we were never supposed to breach. After a year of marriage, I discovered that my father-in-law's divorce from his first wife was caused solely by my mother-in-law. It was like something out of a soap opera, with family secrets and drama around every corner. I couldn't help but wonder if my mother-in-law's incessant comparisons were an attempt to establish herself and fill the shoes of my husband's first wife. It was as if she was attempting to erase the past and establish herself as the ideal wife. But no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't change the fact that my husband's prior marriage was unrelated to me. We were our own pair, with our own special love story. Coming back to the present, as I previously stated, I did not respond. I simply smiled at her mistake. My mother-in-law's birthday was the next day, so I decided to return the surprise. I decided to play a prank by writing my father-in-law's first wife's name on the birthday cake rather than my mother-in-law's. Of course, I pretended to be completely innocent, blaming the bakery for the mix-up. Oh, her expression when she saw the cake, it was amazing. She was furious, and I couldn't help but smirk. It felt like karma had come full circle. All those times she had belittled me and made me feel unworthy, and now she was the one suffering the consequences. She began yelling and throwing a tantrum, but I stayed calm and composed. My husband attempted to calm her down, but she refused to listen to reason. It felt freeing to watch her lose control for once. I innocently asked whether she was okay, appearing to be unaware of the situation. Inside, I was gleefully chuckling. But she stormed out, unable to take the humiliation. My husband seemed perplexed and inquired as to if I had done it purposely. I refused to admit the reality, so I pretended it was an honest mistake. "Come on, I must have picked up the wrong cake," I said with a completely innocent smile. He was completely taken in. It was my little secret, my opportunity to give her back what she deserved. I knew I shouldn't have descended to her level, but I couldn't stop myself from giving her a taste of her own medicine, and it felt great. Do you think I went too far by bringing up past wounds? My small birthday cake prank appears to have sparked quite a controversy. My mother-in-law is constantly moaning, claiming that I did it on purpose. However, as the saying goes, what goes around comes around. Of course, I denied it and pretended to be completely innocent. I reminded her about the time she ruined up my birthday with the tea incident and how I didn't respond the same way she did. Come on, it was only a cake, right? There's no need to blow everything out of proportion, but you know how mother-in-laws are. They're always looking for an excuse to be dramatic. She enjoys the spotlight, and this was her chance to shine. The entire family is aware of how volatile she can be, so it comes as no surprise that they are all on my side. They've witnessed her dramatic antics before, and they're not buying it this time. It's actually rather funny how the tables have turned. She's used to being the center of attention and getting her way, but this time, she's left red-faced and enraged. I have to say, I am loving the program. My spouse seems to be torn between defending his mother and believing me. But, well, I'm not going to tell you about my little joke. Let him think about what he wants. Everything's in good humor, right? Update 2. Since the small cake prank, my mother-in-law has been surprisingly quiet and has not bothered us much. It's like a breath of fresh air, and life has become significantly more calm. Maybe my little joke had a bigger influence on her than I realized. Perhaps she realized her dramatic theatrics were not getting her anywhere and decided to tone it down a notch. Or perhaps she's simply sulking in a corner, nursing her injured pride. Regardless, I'm not complaining. I can finally breathe without being constantly scrutinized and criticized. It's as if a weight has been removed off my shoulders, and I feel more liberated than ever before. Of course, I am not stupid enough to believe that this newfound peace would remain indefinitely. Knowing my mother-in-law, she might be able to recover from her drama quickly. But for now, I'm just going to enjoy it. Update 3. You know the saying, if you can't defeat them, block them. And this is exactly what I did. Life has been so much better since I decided to block my mother-in-law. No more nagging or drama, only lovely, peaceful silence. And thank you to everyone who supported me in the comments. It is comforting to know that I am not alone in dealing with a dramatic mother-in-law. Your words of support have given me strength. When she confronted me about blocking her, I just acted calmly and blamed it on network troubles. Hey, a little white lie never hurts anyone, right? Furthermore, it's enjoyable to tease her a little. I must say, I'm loving my newfound power and control. Blocking her has given me a sense of freedom and calm that I never thought imaginable. It's as if I have the remote control for her drama, and I get to choose when to turn it on or off. To everyone dealing with a dramatic mother-in-law, be strong and don't allow anyone to knock you down. Until next time, be careful and live your best life. Bye for now. Opinion 1. NTA for sure. Dealing with a demanding mother-in-law may be a nightmare, and you took the necessary precautions to keep your sanity. Blocking her was a wise decision, because network troubles occur all the time, right? You deserve to live a tranquil, drama-free existence. Don't allow someone to guilt you into coping with unwanted karma. Continue doing you and enjoy the well-deserved peace. Opinion 2. NTA is my gal. Mother-in-laws can be a pain in the neck at times, and you may have to take action yourself. It's critical to prioritize your mental health, and if that means avoiding toxic people, then so be it. Stay strong, and don't let anyone make you feel guilty about putting yourself first. Now to the next story, story 2. I thought I was just being clumsy. But then I found proof that my boyfriend was booby-trapping our apartment and now I am running for my life. Original post. I manage a team of 12 people and last year had a 13th member added when other managers refused to deal with him any longer. He is diagnosed with depression and generalized anxiety disorder. He is morbidly obese and suffers from musculoskeletal problems related to obesity and diabetes. When they came to me it was because I have helped other mentally ill staff members and I was happy to take them on as I felt I could help them. We did make progress and steadily increased their level of work. It has never reached the level considered acceptable, but I made accommodations to relieve pressure, hoping this would lead to a sustained long-term improvement. I sought out equipment to help them be more physically comfortable given their obesity. I felt we were making progress. Unfortunately, they committed a serious breach of security, sent out personal information to someone not legally entitled to have it, and I had to place them on formal disciplinary action. Since then they have been on sick leave for over 3 months. They are now subject to attendance management procedures and have reached out to a local mental health group and advised them that I have bullied and harassed them. This bullying and harassment has, according to them, has made it impossible for them to return to work. I have documented evidence that this is not true. When they were told they needed to move away from me for health and safety reasons, they became very distressed and demanded to stay with me for mental health reasons. I have signed documentation where they state I am supportive and they don't want the reasonable accommodations I have offered, shorter days, fewer days, longer breaks, etc. I have a meeting with them and their support workers from the mental health group and I have no idea how to handle this. So how do I handle it? I can prove they are lying and they have a pattern of lying to get themselves out of trouble. I have no concerns about my bosses because they are well aware that this is an utterly unfounded allegation. My worry is that they are completely unsuited to the job and because they point blank refuse to acknowledge they are in any way responsible for the mistakes they are making, it is impossible to correct them. TLDR have been accused of bullying when I haven't relevant comments. When told to go to HROUP, I have spoken with our internal HR, but they are terrified that any accusations of bullying a person with mental health problems could be problematic, as it is a hot topic at present. I have referred the person for counseling internally and they have told me repeatedly, documented, that they have taken up this service. My concern is this meeting is not an internal meeting, it is with people who specifically represent people with mental health problems, and I don't know how to respectfully say that the person is lying through their teeth without sounding like a bully. To be clear, their lies aren't malicious and I don't believe this one is either. It is something said to solve an immediate need, so in this case it is because they need to explain the amount of time they have had off sick, and admitting it is because of their own actions is too terrifying. So, I am being bullied means it's something that is happening to them and they have no control over it. The reality is they do have control over it, but they are so used to being the victim in all situations that they refuse to acknowledge this is not actually true. Comment: judging from your explanation here, it appears that you have an understanding and empathetic attitude toward this person and situation. That attitude, along with the documentation you have regarding accommodations you've offered, should go a long way in your defense. What, exactly, is he saying you've done to bully him? I am not a professional in this area, just have extensive experience working with people with mental health problems in social work education settings. OP. He believes that by pointing out his security breach and substandard level of work I have bullied him. He doesn't allege that he isn't doing this, just that by expecting more I am bullying and harassing him. I am making allowances. For example, other members of staff are expected to deal with approximately 16 cases a day accurately. I am happy for him to do 2 if he does them right. Unfortunately, he can do 2 cases but not correctly. Unfortunately, by allowing him to work at a slower pace, he believes that he should be allowed the same scope of error that someone who is working 16 cases, and as such he is being bullied by expecting him to get his 2 cases 100% right when someone who is working 16 cases has an allowance for minor errors. OOP explains HR more. Yeah, HR's response is basically fire him but don't leave us open to a lawsuit. It is not helpful because I don't want to fire him. He is not currently in a position to do his job to the standard required, but I don't want to detrimentally impact his future. He won't resign for health reasons as he feels it will prevent him getting another job, and HR want him gone without actually doing anything. I'm stuck in the middle because as manipulative as his mental health issues are, they are real. If I wouldn't get fired for doing it, I'd post a copy of the 4-page email I got in response to my specific questions. It was large swathes of the DDA copied and pasted with vague remarks about support, reasonable allowances, and work-life balance. I can only assume they put someone's idiot nephew in charge of the email box on the day I contacted them. They are centralized and are notorious for not giving out specific instructions for fear of having them challenged. Their main purpose is to protect themselves. I have no idea how they keep their jobs, to be honest. Whoop. Last comment. Thank you. His previous warnings have been well documented and evidenced, so I am not too concerned about legal action. I was just really thrown off by the accusation of bullying and harassment and had built up a scenario where I was going to be attacked by his advocates. The great responses like yours has put my mind at ease. It is sad that he has cast himself as the victim in all of this, but I am determined not to be drawn into that mindset, and I won't allow myself to cast into the role of their oppressor because it is simply not true. Update September 18, 2017, 3 months later. Well, the meeting went ahead as planned, and thanks to the wonderful advice and tips from people who kindly responded, I was calm and thought I was prepared. Boy, was I wrong. My colleague and his support worker were both there, and the meeting started really well. I asked how he was doing, what steps he was taking to prepare himself to return to work, etc., and nothing unexpected came up. As arranged, I brought up the allegations of bullying and asked for some specific examples to help me understand what was happening. After worrying myself sick about this, his answer was actually pretty disappointing. He gave no examples and only offered vague explanations about his anxiety making him overreact to other people's conversations, which made him feel like he was being picked on. I advised him, and my boss backed me up, that there was literally nothing I could do about that. I patiently explained that I could not ban people from talking and I would not sit in silence in order to ensure that he never heard anything he didn't like. My boss stressed that his poor performance needed to be addressed and that was part of my job, and that doing it was in no way harassment. His support worker did agree with that, and we had a brief chat about how I could better communicate. To be honest, there was nothing they said that was particularly helpful, but I did agree to be mindful of their condition moving forward. Then it got weird. I asked if there was anything I could do to help him transition back into work. This normally involves a phased return, changing to part-time hours, etc., but not this time. As I was talking, he started taking paperwork out of a folder, and I should have realized something was up when his support worker sighed deeply and slumped down in his chair. My colleague requested that he be allowed to bring an emotional support animal to work with him, namely a support cat. We are in the UK and this is not the norm, so I was a bit surprised. He had not settled on a breed yet but was torn between an Abyssinian or a Siamese. I thought pointing out some obvious difficulties with this idea might make him realize how inappropriate this would be. For example, I pointed out we have a guide dog in the building for a partially sighted colleague. His name is Rufus and is by far the most popular person in the building, the dog, not the human. And they may not get along with a cat. He responded by telling me that it was illegal to discriminate by favoring one disability over another, and if a blind person could have a guide dog, a depressed person could have a cat. I moved on from this, clearly idiotic, point and asked how a cat would react to being placed in a pet carrier twice a day to travel to and from work. He advised me he would train the cat. My boss became very agitated at this point, demanding, "How the hell do you train a cat?" Not to be deterred, my colleague stated that in the worst-case scenario he would leave the cat at work overnight and only take him home on weekends. I asked how he intended to cope with litter tray cleaning, etc. Given his serious weight issues, bending down to empty a litter tray would be difficult for him. He presented me with a spreadsheet he had created with a team rota for cleaning up after the cat and feeding. He had also cost out food, insurance, and the actual cost of the cat on said spreadsheet had an expected donation from each team member, on a sliding scale depending on how he perceived their financial circumstances to be. I was paying the most as I am single, earn more and have no dependent children. The spreadsheet was quite impressive, color-coded and everything. I politely said no to that, and he then started insisting the company should pay as it would be a legitimate business expense to accommodate his disabilities. At this point I realized my boss was still repeating, "How the hell do you train a cat?" And the support worker was shaking his head and muttering, "I told you not to do this." So I made a unilateral decision on behalf of my company and advised him in no certain terms that we would not be buying any cats. We would not be cleaning up after any cats because we would not be permitting him to bring any cats onto the premises. He was not happy. He complained that I was making it impossible for him to return to work. My boss took a break from his cat training mantra to say that we had perhaps gone as far as we could for the time being and we should end the meeting at this point. As we were leaving, he did make a point of telling the support worker, "There will be no bloody cats." The support worker nodded and agreed this was entirely fair. I didn't hear anything from him for a week or so, then I received another 4-week sick note from him, so I called, as per our company procedure, to check in and see how he was doing. He was still very unhappy about my discriminatory anti-cat stance and advised he would be taking it further. 2 weeks later I received a letter from what initially looked like a local solicitor's office. It advised me I was being sued for breaking disability discrimination laws. The letter itself was filled with bizarre, mainly, American legalese that seemed to be culled from Law and Order episodes. On closer examination, the letterhead had been edited to change the contact details to his home phone number and personal mobile. I'm not sure whose address he used, but it wasn't the solicitors in question. I handed it to my boss, who had also received one, so both were forwarded to our legal department. I was advised to have no further contact with him. The legal bodies have informed me that his contract has been terminated with immediate effect. I am honestly stunned as to how it turned out. I half expected him to be terminated due to the amount of time off sick and his unwillingness to address his performance issues, but I would never have guessed it would end like this. It is both funny and sad. Thank you so much to everyone who took the time to calm my nerves before the meeting. It really did mean the world to me. TLDR. Meeting started fine, took a weird turn and went downhill from there.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.
My mother manipulated my fiancé into cheating with my brother. I exposed their lies, and now they're paying the price. My name is Steven, 31, and I've been with my fiancé Lynn, 28, for 2 years. We've been engaged for 6 months. My younger brother Wesley, 29, lives around 15 minutes from us. Our mother, Nancy, 55, has always been intense, but she has recently been acting strangely with Lynn. It began with Mom making odd comments about Wesley's gym success or how some women simply need a more physically present male. I work 50 to 60 hours per week to provide for our future, and Wesley works as a personal trainer. Nothing wrong with it, but Mom treats him like he's a Greek god. Last month, I noticed Lynn acting differently during family dinners, more silent and checking her phone more frequently. I dismissed it as wedding planning stress. Things went horribly wrong yesterday. Mom invited Lynn over to discuss wedding plans while I was supposed to be at work. My crew finished early, so I decided to surprise them. I drove up to Mom's house and pushed open the window. I overheard everything. Mom was in full manipulation mode. "Lynn, honey, I'm telling you this because I care. Steven's just like his father, always working, never home. Wesley could give you the attention you deserve. He's asked about you, you know. He says he sees how lonely you are." Lynn's response made my blood turn cold. "Nancy, I don't know. Steven's been distant lately." Mom intervened. "He's the stronger man. You need a real husband. Someone who will be there, not just provide a paycheck. Wesley could give you that passionate life you deserve." I stood frozen. Lynn then stated something that shocked me. "Wesley has been texting me, nothing inappropriate." That was when I walked in. The expressions on their faces. Mom had the guts to smile as if she were doing me a favor. Lynn became white like a sheet. I did not yell. I did not need to. I simply looked at Mom and said, "So this is what wedding planning looks like?" Mom straightened up, feeling righteous. Someone had to say something. "You're never home, Always at work. Wesley, I cut her off. Wesley this, Wesley that. Really funny how you never mentioned the 3 failed relationships he's had this year alone. Lynn attempted to explain. Stephen, it's not what you think. Let me see your phone, I requested. There is no more sound. If nothing is inappropriate, show me the texts. She gripped her phone closer. Mom started screaming about how I'm being controlling, how I don't trust Lynn, and how Wesley would never demand to see someone's phone. Rich, coming from the lady who reads her father's emails just to make sure. I walked out. Lynn followed me to the driveway, crying about how confused she was and how her mother had gotten into her head. She vowed to delete Wesley's phone number, as if it mattered nothing. I got home to find 6 missed calls from Wesley. He texted me, "We need to talk, bro." We sure do. Mom has been blowing up my phone all day. Obviously, being paranoid is costing me a nice woman. Dad also called, attempting to maintain the status quo as usual. You know how your mother gets, son? She means well. Means well? She is actively attempting to set up my brother with my fiancé, and Lynn is sleeping in the guest room, claiming she wants space to ponder. Funny how that works. What is the worst part? My friend Patrick informed me that Wesley had been turning up at the coffee shop near Lynn's employment for weeks, coincidentally during her lunch hour. Very subtle, bro. I'm not playing their games. I'm not going to sit around waiting for any more innocent texts or coffee shop coincidences. I just received a missed call from Mom, which was most likely another lecture about how Wesley always made time for family or something. I'm going to sleep on the couch tonight. Tomorrow's going to be fascinating. Edit. Holy cow, this blew out. Thank you for your support. To answer some typical questions. Yes, we are in couples counseling. No, I didn't know about the texts until yesterday. Wesley is still blowing up my phone. I left him on red. Some of you considered this a hoax because no mother would do this. You're lucky to have normal parents. Lynn texted me that she'll be staying at her sister's apartment until things quiet down. Yes, it will help. Mom has already called twice this morning, have not responded. I'll provide an update once I've determined my next course of action. Right now, I need a drink and some sleep. Update 1. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone who supported my last post. I wish I had better news, but everything happened precisely as some of you expected. Sorry for the lengthy post, but I needed to get everything off my chest. Quick recap. I'm 31 and I noticed my mother, Nancy, 55, acting strangely around my fiancé, Lynn, 28, and making jokes about my brother, Wesley, 29, being more of a man than me. You warned me, and I should have listened sooner. The last 3 weeks have been horrible. Lynn began going out more, claiming girls' evenings every Thursday and occasionally Saturdays. I didn't think much of it until I realized she came home smelling like Wesley's terrible fragrance. You know the type, the one that every wannabe Instagram fitness dude uses. Last Thursday, she stated that she was going to see her friend Amber for cocktails. Something felt odd. She was dressed differently than usual and had been texting all day with a strange smile. I decided to drive past Wesley's apartment complex on my way to meet Patrick for our weekly Thursday gaming session. Call it intuition or anything, but her car was right there in the visiting area. I waited in my truck for about 20 minutes, feeling my blood pressure rising with every minute. Then I noticed them through his ground floor window. They sat on his couch, her head on his shoulder, watching something on his laptop. My own brother and my fiancé, looking as comfortable as can be. I am not proud of what happened next, but I am also not regretful. I marched straight up and knocked on his door. The look on their faces as they opened it, Wesley in his dumb compression shirt, Lynn in the things I got her for her birthday. I'll never forget this. How long, is all I asked? Lynn began crying, but not the guilty type, but the I got caught kind. Wesley attempted to walk between us, inflating his chest like he often does. Bro, we need to talk about this like adults. I cut him off. How long? 2 months, Lynn muttered. It just happened. You're always working late, and Wesley understands me better. I laughed. Actually, I laughed. Understand you better? The guy who still lives in a rented studio apartment at 29? The one who sells overpriced protein powder to college kids? That's when everything started to go wrong. Wesley tried to throw a punch. He was always a hothead. I grabbed his arm and shoved him back into his flat. Really, you, my fiancé, and then try to hit me? Real classy, bro. I called our mother right there on speakerphone. Do you want to know what she said? She genuinely chuckled and said, well, honey, I tried to tell you. Wesley's always been the stronger one. Lynn needs a real man, not someone who's going to bore her to death. Within a few hours, the family group chat had exploded. Wesley played the victim, alleging I threatened him. I did not. Lynn used the butterfly emoji to accompany a hazy Instagram tale about following your heart. My mother began calling everyone, weaving her version of events in which I was the evil person who drove Lynn away due to my workaholic tendencies. Dad is staying out of it, which is typical. My sister texted that she is appalled with all of them. The extended family is divided. Half believes I should man up and fight for my relationship with my unfaithful fiancé, while the other half has some sense. Lynn moved out yesterday, while I was at work. She took everything I ever gave her, as well as other things she didn't own. She left her ring on the kitchen counter with the remark, "I never meant to hurt you." Classic. The kicker? Mom organized a family supper tonight. Guess who arrived together? Yes, Wesley and Lynn are holding hands like teenagers. Mom looked so proud. You'd think she had planned a royal wedding. I didn't go, of course. I sat at home, looking for all the indications I'd missed, the unexpected gym sessions, the new clothes, the way she'd turn her phone away when texting Wesley, showing up at family occasions he typically avoided, and Mom's frequent comparisons. Here's the thing, I'm not sad. I am not even angry anymore. I'm just finished. I'm over Wesley's phony alpha guy act. I'm done with Lynn's victim routine. I'm done with Mom's manipulation. They think I'll just take it and show up at Christmas as if nothing happened. They have no idea what is coming. TLDR. I caught my fiancé with my brother. Mother practically arranged the whole thing. They're now playing the happy couple while portraying me as the bad guy, but I'm not taking it lying down. Edit. Many thanks for the prizes and messages. To everyone who has asked, yes, I have already spoken with a lawyer about what Lynn took, and no, I am not going to try to work it out as some of you advised. Some bridges need to be burned. Edit 2. Stop DMing me and asking for Wesley's Instagram. I understand you want to disgrace him, but I'm doing it my way. Update 2. It's been 3 weeks since my previous update, and holy, everything just went horribly wrong. Remember how Wesley and my mother used to gloat about how I'd ultimately come around and accept things as they are? Yeah, karma is a bitch, and I am her favorite wingman right now. First and foremost, thank you for all of your supportive direct messages. You guys kept me focused when I wanted to drink myself stupid. Special thanks to the person who advised that I look into Wesley's business methods. You were onto something there. So, remember how Wesley was constantly bragging about his personal training business? It turns out Mr. Perfect was not exactly following the rules. All those protein supplements he sold to his customers, he was getting them from a shady supplier and repackaging them in his garage. I may have provided an anonymous tip to the fitness certification board regarding his unlicensed practice. Whoops. What is the best part? He was conducting his business using Venmo and Cash App without reporting anything. That type of information tends to pique the curiosity of tax officials. I didn't even have to do anything illegal. I simply forwarded some of his social media postings where he was literally bragging about his cash-only dealings to the appropriate individuals. My mother, Nancy, was not pleased when Wesley's certification was suspended. She came to my flat last Tuesday, yelling about how I was killing the family. I just stood there sipping my coffee as she was having a meltdown in the hallway. My neighbor even filmed it. Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. TikTok truly took off. You're just jealous because Wesley's a real man, she yelled. I just chuckled and added, real men pay their taxes, Mom. The expression on her face was amazing. But this is where things get better. Remember how my mother was always the top real estate agent in our area? It turns out she's been cutting corners too. Nothing huge, but enough that when someone, certainly not me, began investigating her business operations, things became intriguing. What about those fantastic reviews she was always bragging about? Half of them vanished after being identified as suspicious. Lynn is beginning to detect flaws in her beautiful new man. Wesley had to cancel their weekend excursion since he could no longer afford it. She tried to contact me through Patrick last week, stating she misses our conversations. Yes, right. Patrick told her that I was too preoccupied with my new promotion to care about her drama. Oh, did I mention I was promoted? It turns out that channeling your anger into work rather than drinking produces positive results. The rise is good, but the timing is even better. Wesley is having to move back in with our parents because he can no longer afford his apartment. The family is now separated. Half of them are not speaking to me, which is good because I didn't like those cousins in the first place. The other half continues to send me funny emojis whenever Wesley or Mom write cryptic Facebook statements about being strong in the face of critics. Everything came to a climax last night at a family meeting intended to sort things out. Mom and Wesley ambushed me at Dad's home. They attempted to guilt trip me about family loyalty while Lynn sat there looking uncomfortable. I quickly brought out my phone and showed the video of Mom telling Lynn that Wesley was more manly than me. Dad had not seen that one before. His face changed from crimson to purple quite quickly. He requested Mom to go. This is the first time I've ever seen him stand up to her. Wesley tried to get in my face, saying I was sad for not fighting fairly. I simply smiled and asked him how his protein shake company was going. He swung at me, missed, and his face hit Dad's coffee table. He now has a shattered nose that matches his wounded ego. Lynn began crying, stating that this was not what she wanted. I simply shrugged and replied, "You made your bed. I hope it was worthwhile." I then went out, leaving Wesley bleeding on Dad's carpet. This morning, my phone was flooded with alerts. Wesley's certification board made their final verdict online, and he will be barred from personal training for at least 2 years. Mom's real estate broker fired her after additional complaints surfaced, and Lynn? She is informing everybody who will listen that she made a mistake. What is the best way to exact revenge? I am truly happier today. I got my own place, my job is doing well, and I've met someone new who values loyalty. Life is funny like that. TLDR. Brother and ex-fiancé believed they had won via cheating. Mom backed them. I played the long game, legally revealed their nefarious methods, and now they're all paying the price, while my life is better than ever. Edit. Holy cow, this blew out. RIP. Inbox. No, I will not post the TikTok video. I'm trying to maintain some privacy here. Edit 2. Stop asking for Lynn's social media. It's not cool, guys. Edit 3. Yes, Wesley attempted to swing at me. No, I did not press charges. His shattered nose and ruined reputation were enough. Finally, an update. Thank you to everyone for your support. It's been 2 months since my last update, and things have really escalated. Grab your popcorn, for Karma has finally arrived, and she's a stone-cold TLDR. Wesley's life crashed. Lynn crawled back. LOL, no. And my mother's idyllic little world disintegrated. Sometimes vengeance is simply watching others kill themselves. At 6 a.m., the phone started vibrating. Last Thursday. I ignored Wesley's first several calls, but by the time I got out of the shower, I had 19 missed calls from him, Lynn, and my mother. Didn't bother phoning back. I just prepared coffee and watched the show on Facebook. Remember how I described Wesley's supplement business in my previous post? It turns out the protein shakes he was selling were not quite legal. Someone, not me, anonymously informed the health department about his unlicensed company. They conducted a surprise check and discovered his garage filled with outdated supplements that he was repackaging as premium protein blends. What is the best part? He had been peddling this trash at his gym. When word spread, his clients began commenting about feeling sick. The gym promptly dismissed him. His personal training certificate? Gone. My mother used to brag about her affluent clients. It's all gone. But wait, things get better. Remember the electrical work Wesley did at Mom's office? The one she kept telling me to admire because your brother is so handy? It's interesting how the building inspector showed up after receiving images of unlawful electrical work. My mother's real estate office had to close for 2 weeks for emergency repairs. It cost her a fortune, and she failed to close 3 sales. I did not do anything wrong. I simply ensured that the appropriate individuals received the correct information at the right time. Lynn began to reconsider her upgrade when Wesley found himself unable to pay their flat any longer. She genuinely showed up at my house last week, weeping about how she had made a mistake. I told her I was busy. I was actually preparing for a date with Zoe, the new receptionist at my gym. Yes, Wesley's former gym. Petty? Maybe. Worth it? Absolutely. The real satisfaction came during Sunday's family meal. Mom insisted on these wee-wee meetings, using them to highlight her successful offspring. This time, I did turn up. First time since the separation. I brought Zoe. Mom almost choked when she saw us. Wesley and Lynn were also present, both of whom appeared unhappy. Wesley is wearing his old high school clothes since he cannot afford new ones. Lynn was trying to capture my attention, but I was too busy telling everyone about my promotion, supervisor position, company truck, the full thing. Mom tried to divert the subject, but Dad, who has finally grown a spine, kept inquiring about my job. Then Wesley lost it. He began yelling about how I had wrecked his life. Mom leaped in to defend her precious baby boy. I just sat there eating potatoes while Wesley had a meltdown. He even accused me of reporting him to everyone. Of course, we couldn't prove anything. I simply smiled and inquired whether he had tried the new protein shakes at the gym. I heard they were legit. Lynn attempted to play mediator, which was amusing. Steven, can't we all just get past this? Lynn, what are you moving past? Your decision to become a stronger man who now cannot afford Dollar General protein powder. Mom's real estate business is suffering. It turns out that when you lose your office for 2 weeks and are charged with health code breaches, people begin searching elsewhere. The gossip group she adored? They're having a field day with her handyman son and the expired supplement scandal. What about the cherry on top? Dad eventually spoke up. He told Mom he was weary of her playing favorites. He has been sleeping in the guest room and talks about taking some time to reflect. I did not have to throw a single punch or break any laws. I simply sat back and watched karma do her thing. Wesley's strength proved ineffective when his house of cards crumbled. Mom's beloved golden child is now the neighborhood joke, and Lynn, last I heard, is looking for teaching jobs in another district when parents at her school learned about the controversy. Me? Life is good? Zoe is great. She respects a man who works hard rather than just bragging about his protein shakes. The promotion came with a good raise, and best of all, I slept like a baby knowing that all I had to do was wait for their own deeds to catch up with them. Mom still calls occasionally, typically wailing about how I have pulled the family apart. I simply let it go to voicemail. Wesley attempted to connect on LinkedIn last week. Denied. Lynn sent a lengthy email discussing closure. Unread messages were deleted. They desired a stronger man. They did get one, but it wasn't what they expected. Edit. Because people keep asking, yes, all of the reports and tips were entirely real. They were actually selling expired vitamins. The electrical work was clearly not up to code. I just made sure everyone noticed.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.